Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it was polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that. For your sake, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with a wonderful expression.
Yes, sir.
As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Oh, by the way, Lane, I seen from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shoreman and Mr. Worthy were dining with me, that 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment, the servants invariably drink the champagne? I merely ask for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of wine, sir. Oftentimes in married households, the champagne is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience with it myself up to the present, and that was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't think that I am much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. Neither am I. It's not a very interesting subject.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Earnest Worthing!
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you up to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Oh, in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people.
And
it is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
Not nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Eh? Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello, why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
Oh, how perfectly delightful!
Yes, that is all very well. But I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come up for business. I call that pleasure.
Oh, how utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted, one usually is, I believe, then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
Oh, I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
There's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Don't touch the cucumber sandwiches! They're ordered specially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you have been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
Ooh, and very good bread and butter it is too.
Dear fellow, you need not eat as if you're going to eat at all. You behave as if you are married to her already. You are not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
What on earth do you mean by that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it's right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? I don't know what you mean. What on earth do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? No, I don't know anyone of the name Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room last time he dined here.
Yes, sir. Do you mean to say you have had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had told me so. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no good in offering a reward now that the thing is found.
That is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times. Besides, you've no right whatsoever to read what's written inside. It is a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule about what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk about in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Now give it back to me, Algie.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, and some aunts are not tall. That is a matter that surely an aunt may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case!
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From little Cecily, with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt. But why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle? I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd. You're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as a proof that your name is Ernest. If you ever attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you had much better just have the thing out at once.
Oh, my dear fellow, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, go on. Tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I am quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now produce your explanation, and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it is perfectly ordinary. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect you could not possibly understand, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you perfectly candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I bunburied all over Shropshire on 2 separate accounts. Now go on, tell me the whole thing. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algy, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It is one's duty to do so. And, as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives in the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear boy. Don't try it. You should leave that to the people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you were a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Earnest, in order that you may be able to go up to town as often as you'd like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis's tonight, for I've really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine anywhere with me tonight.
I know. You are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I have no intentions of doing anything of the kind. To begin with, I dined there on Monday. and once a week is more than enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm treated as a member of the family, and sent down with either no woman at all, or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to tonight. She'll place me next Mary Farquhar, who is always flirting with her own husband from across the dinner table. It is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent, and that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad. It is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a convert Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunbury. I want to tell you the rules.
I am not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I am going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too much interested in him, and it is really rather a bore. So, I'm going to get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me to be extremely problematic, you'll be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time.
If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company, and 2 is none.
That, my dear young fellow, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home has proved it half the time.
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It is perfectly easy to be cynical.
It isn't easy to be anything nowadays, dear boy. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. That must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors are really that vulnerable matter. Now, if I get locked away for 10 minutes, in order that you have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you at Willis's tonight?
Oh, I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Algernon.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave little room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I am sorry if we are a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call upon dear Lady Horbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I have never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come sit over here?
Thanks, Mamma. I am quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens! Where are the cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers when I went to the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers.
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do then. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers, not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some grumbles with Lady Horbury, who seems to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned white gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its color. From what, of course, I cannot say. Thank you. I have quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm sending you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It is delightful to watch them.
I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all.
Oh, I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would sir.
It is a great bore, and need I hardly say a terrible disappointment, but I have just received a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury has become very ill again, and they seem to think I should be with him.
It is strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously poor health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that it is high time that Mr. Bunbury decide whether to live or to die. This shilly-shallying on the question is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I find it morbid. I should be much obliged if you were to ask Mr. Bunbury from me not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I require you to compose my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that inspires conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone's practically said whatever it is that they've had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
Of course, I'll speak with Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. And the music, of course, is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays bad music, people don't listen. And if one plays good music, people don't talk. But I'll kindly resume the program I've drawn out if you will follow me into the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very kind of you. I think the program will be delightful. After a few expurgations, French songs I cannot possibly allow. When one plays them, people look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. German sounds a thoroughly respectable language. Indeed, I believe it is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me?
Certainly, Mamma.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back into a room suddenly that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact, and I have often wished that, in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always held an irresistible fascination. Well, even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen?
Passionately.
Oh, darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't really mean to say you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest.
But your name is Ernest.
I know it is. But supposing it was something else, do you really mean to say you couldn't love me then?
Ah, this is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations. several checks, and they were all, without exception, more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She may never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthy?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you have not proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you from any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mr. Worthing, what is it you've got to say to me?
You know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. My, how long you have been about it. I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. Ernest, what wonderfully blue eyes you have. They are quite blue. I hope that you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthy!
Oh, good heavens.
Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mamma, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. Engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise. Pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be, it is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. And while I make these inquiries, Gwendolyn, you will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mamma!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn!
Yes, Mamma.
You may take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men, but I do have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to put your name down should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Yes. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I am pleased to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married. I have always been of the opinion that a man that wishes to marry should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I myself am of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it, and the bloom is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That sounds satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to either be a profit or a pleasure. It simply gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That is all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones who make anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature such as Gwendolyn can hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to a Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can have it back whenever I'd like in 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham. I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She is a lady considerably advanced in years.
Ah, nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
Oh, the unfashionable side. I knew there was something. However, that can easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, I presume, if necessary. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I am a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us, or come in the evening at any rate. And now on to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthy, may be regarded as a misfortune, but to lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? Evidently he was a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce, or did he rise through the ranks of the aristocracy?
Well, I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost both my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that they both seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very kindly and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing, because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
And where did this charitable gentleman with a first-class ticket to a seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, a somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
And in what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew find this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom of Victoria Station?
Yes, the bright line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I must confess, I feel somewhat bewildered by what you've just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to show a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life, and reminds one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And we both know what that unfortunate movement led to, but it can hardly be regarded as an assured basis of a recognized position in a good society.
May I ask then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations and make a definite effort to produce one parent of either sex before the season
don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you. I know it is a way she has. She is always refusing people. I think it's most ill-natured of her.
Gwendolyn is as right as a rivet. As far as she's concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she's a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algy. I suppose I shouldn't talk this way about your own aunt before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge about how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about the matter. You always want to argue about things.
Well, that is what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't really think there is any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algy?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, that's his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased, and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I am sick to death of cleverness. Everybody is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course.
Oh, what fools!
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Earnest?
Oh, I shall have got rid of him before the end of the week. I shall say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's a hereditary thing, my dear boy. It's a sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better say a severe chill.
You are quite sure that a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well. Poor Ernest is carried off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Miss Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly, romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
Well, I would rather like to see Cecily.
I shall take very good care. You never do. She is excessively pretty, and she's only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to become extremely great friends. I bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they call each other a lot of other things first. If we want to get a good table at Willis's, we must really get going. Do you know it is nearly 7?
Oh, it is always nearly 7.
I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Well, what shall we do after dinner? Shall we go to a theater?
Oh no, I loathe listening.
Well, let's just go to the club.
Oh no, I hate talking.
We should trot round to the Empire around 10.
Oh no, I can't bear looking at things. It is so silly.
Then what shall we do?
Nothing.
It is awfully hard work doing nothing. Oh, but I don't mind hard work where there's no definite object of any kind. Oh.
Miss Fairfax!
Gwendolyn, upon my word!
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Gwendolyn, I really don't think I can allow anything of the kind.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude toward life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married, And although I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn,
Story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
the Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algy, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
And you may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, won't you, my own darling?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
You can put up all my dress clothes, all the smoking jackets and Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, will be a fine day.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are such a perfect pessimist.
I do my best for satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl, the only girl I ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that is all.
If you don't take care, that friend Bunbury of yours will get you into a serious scrape someday.
I love scrapes. They're the only thing that is never serious.
Oh, that is nonsense, Algy. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does.